So energy flows where the mind goes. That's intention for me. Where my mind flows is where my energy goes. And so if my mind is on, I cannot do this, or this is too hard, or I'm going to stay stuck in grief. If I keep putting my mind there, my energy is going to go there. And that's what I'm going to manifest. But if my mind goes to, I'm going to do this thing, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it, the energy is going to go into getting that thing done.
I wanted to create a space, an offering, if you will, where we can experience the human spirit through conversations to make connecting with others matter again. There is a need for a sacred and safe place to simply be, with no judgment and no ridicule. A place where storytelling stimulates peace-filled conversations. Conversations that allow for our guests to be seen, felt, and heard. Conversations that help to build a bridge for connection and community with our audience. And conversations that create new perspectives. This is the conversation piece. We invite you to sit back and enjoy. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the conversation piece. I am your host, Keli. Today, we are in conversation with Dixie Lincoln-Nichols, a self-care advocate, and not just that, she is an advocate for well-aging, and we will get into that a little bit later. Dixie, welcome to the conversation piece. How are you?
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Keli. I am super thrilled to be here. You know why, and for many more reasons. I am well and looking forward to this conversation that we're going to have today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You know, I will, since you said, and so much more, I have to tell everybody, Dixie is the one that I reached out to create this. She gave me information about the microphone, about what app to use or software to use, and you have been a blessing. So you have been my conversation piece angel. So thank you.
Love it. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. So let's dig right on in. I do have to say, when I saw you on Instagram a few years ago, I just thought you were stunning. Okay. And everything that you were involved in, I was like, I gotta support. So I just wanted to put that out there first.
And support you have. Thank you so much. It's incredible how we can make such meaningful friendships and connections if we're open to right there on that Instagram app. And it's been several years and here we are. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. So let me just dive right on in. So you were actually a science teacher for 16 years, and then you dove into this wellness space, if you will. And then also an owner of a wellness company called Inside Outer Beauty Market, where beauty runs deep. What was the pivotal moment that you decide, you know what, I'm going to leave this part of education in the classroom and go into the realm of wellness and educating there?
Wow, that's such a great question. I think it all started around where people like to consider midlife. I was around 38. In hindsight, it's when I started experiencing perimenopause. Didn't realize it then, but something started stirring within me. And I sound a little funny. I don't know if I sound funny to people, but I just got Invisalign, so it feels funny in my mouth. So if you hear a bit of a lisp, that's why. So I started having this stirring within me. Something needed to be addressed. There was something I was not paying attention to. There were sensations that I was not addressing. And so there was a void there. I was tending to everyone else's needs, but not my own. Being the mother, the wife, caretaker, getting the kids sorted out, supporting my husband's career. But I wasn't doing what I felt called to do. I loved education, my graduate degrees in teaching and learning. I love biology, my undergraduate degrees in biology with a minor in chemistry. So science and health and wellness are absolute loves, passions, and I'm good at it. But there was something missing. And so I started to explore the idea of self-care. I started to dig a little deeper and I'm like, okay, you are going to pay attention to all of the sensations of your body and try to figure out what it is you need to do for your life. What is missing and how do you go about putting that missing piece or missing pieces together? And so I arrived eventually at a self-care sabbatical. Started looking into business and started my very first company, Dixie Bits. You don't even know about that, Keli. But that was the impetus for the next and the next and the next. And then I got brave enough to lean into this idea that I can take a sabbatical. Now, I was tinkling with the idea of taking a sabbatical the traditional way. So, you leave, you go study, they pay you for a couple of years. But I was like, no, this sabbatical needs to be for me. I need to take care of myself. So I landed on a self-care sabbatical. And I remember my principal at the time saying to me, well, girl, I don't know about you leaving this job. Your daughter, my youngest, she has rheumatoid arthritis. What happens if your husband leaves you? I'm worried about you not getting health care. Yes, that was what I was greeted with, other people's fear for me. Luckily, I had the intelligence to go to people who I felt would give me honest feedback. And one of those persons was my grandmother, who is a Christian to her core. And I said, Granny, I'm thinking of leaving. I don't know. And she said to me, jump. God and life will catch you. And oh, I jumped. I was like, okay, here I come, God. Here I come, life. And I jumped. I left my job, focused on my business, and then went on to, it was just a long story short, series of fortunate events that caused a lot of learning, unlearning. It led me to becoming a health and wellness coach. I got certificates from the School of Naturopathic Medicine in the UK, where I studied for a while. I had health and wellness clients. I was doing that for a while. And then it led me to Inside Outer Beauty Market. And I had no plans of opening a retailer. I wanted to have a product-based business, but when Dixie Bits didn't work out, I sort of just allowed things to unfold because that was one of the things I was very clear that I needed to do. Allow things to unfold. I remember taking this course with a company called Momentum, and they taught me not to be married to the journey. And so I had to keep coming back to not being married to how this journey is going to unfold. Keep my mind on the big picture, on the vision. And so I kept my mind on the vision. I released Dixie Bits, and somehow God brought me Inside Out of Beauty Market. I paid attention to the signs that He put in the universe for me and realized that I needed to do this because having products that were efficacious but also clean and supportive to the body was something very important to me because I was diagnosed with uterine fibroids. And I started going deeper into what I needed to do for my body to address the hormonal imbalances that was happening, the estrogen dominance that was happening. I didn't want to be putting in any extra estrogen into my body, any mimickers that you find inside of the ingredients in the product. So I started to explore all of that. And then Inside Out of Beauty Market came to fruition because I wanted to create not just a space for indie brands, but also a space that supported people who wanted cleaner ingredients in their, self-care cabinet, in their beauty cabinet. And I wanted to have a place where I can educate people about what it means to be knowledgeable about ingredients, knowledgeable about the things that they put into their bodies, knowledgeable about what they put on their bodies. And so this health and wellness business became the next thing on the self-care sabbatical. And so that's really how the whole story unfolded with Inside Out of Beauty Market.
That's beautiful. I just had to take a breath on that because how many people actually really take the leap?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this conversation piece is a leap. I
Yeah.
never wanted to be in front of the camera. So to hear that you took the leap and it took you down and you surrendered, you let go, and you allowed and you were open and receptive
All of it.
and something that you didn't even imagine came out of that,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Now you eventually closed the store
Mhm.
in 2023.
Yep.
I'm all about transitions and seasons. What was the moment or what season were you in at that time where you said, you know what, it's time to close and move
Yeah.
forward with
Yeah.
something else?
Great question. Again, because of this self-care sabbatical, I think one of the things I developed was discernment, understanding when it's time to release, it's time to let go, it's time to move on. And I went in with a clear goal. 5 years. If I don't get the funding that I was seeking within 5 years, then I would start looking at what the next steps were. I didn't look at closing. I said I would look at what the next steps were, but it was a benchmark for me to reevaluate what was happening. Did I get to the goal of the funding that I needed? Okay, yeah, if I did, I would move forward. If I didn't, then some changes would have to take place. And at 5 years, I came back and I looked, I did a whole inventory. I reflected on where I was at that particular time on my fundraising journey, and it wasn't where I wanted to be. And I also had to sit and ask myself, is this what you want for yourself? It is hard. Fundraising is hard work. And I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to continually keep going like an Energizer bunny. Right. And I knew that there were so many lessons that I learned along the way. It made me a bolder, braver, more confident, more knowledgeable, more just empathetic, passionate, so many things it did for me in so many ways. So I didn't look at it as a failure. I looked at it as a lesson learned. This didn't work out, but I now had so much more knowledge, so much more awareness that I could act from and I can take action from. And so it was like, it's fine, Dixie. It's going to be okay. Do what you have to do. And what you have to do and what you need to do right now is close this business. Because I didn't want to be in a business that sucked the energy out of me, where I was the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, doing all the things, right? I did all the things, but that's not sustainable. It wasn't sustainable for the business. It wasn't sustainable for my health and my well being. And so it was time to release it and be thankful for what it brought to me. I grieved it for a while. Once I closed the business, I took some time out for myself because that transition, so funny how it happened, coincided with the transition of my daughter going away to college to a foreign country. And I was like, oh my God, this is just, oh, pain all around. The business is closed. This phase of motherhood has closed. And I'm here mourning what was as a mother, what was as a business owner, and not too much focusing on next, but just really sitting with it in the moment and grieving the losses and grieving the change that I had to make. I shouldn't say grieving the change. I think I was excited about the change, but grieving the loss, what was no more, that I had to sit in, stew in, and move past. I took my time, I did it, and here I am. Something else has popped up.
Yeah. And it sounds like you were very intentional with that process, and even welcoming the new beginnings. So, what does intentionality mean to and for you?
Hmm, love it. I do Qigong, and I know you see me doing my Qigong, my restorative practice, at least one of my restorative practices. And one of the things that we do to maximize Qi or energy flow in our bodies is to move with intention rather than force. And so, intention means knowing that this is where you're going to go, centering your mind, thinking of what it is you want. And the more you think of something, the more energy you put into that, and the more you get it done. Now, how it's going to get done is a totally different thing. But the intention is, I am going to do that thing. So energy flows where the mind goes. That's intention for me. Where my mind flows is where my energy goes. And so if my energy is on, if my mind is on, I cannot do this, or this is too hard, or I'm going to stay stuck in grief. If I keep putting energy there, then guess what? If I keep putting my mind there, my energy is going to go there. And that's what's going to build. That's what I'm going to manifest. I can't. I don't. I won't. But if my mind goes to, I'm going to do this thing, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it, the energy is going to go into getting that thing done. Guess what? Recently, for me, it's been rest.
Mm-hmm.
The intention has been to rest. I had a really hard 2 months with all kinds of unexpected life situations unfolding. And so the last few months has been, my intention is to rest my body, rest my mind. And that's exactly what I've done. And so within the last week, the intention is time to get up, time to start moving again, time to start doing again, time to start being again. And so my mind is there, and that's where the energy is taking me. And that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm here sitting with you, having this conversation, having this piece of a conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the intention was get up and move. And then I got your invitation inbox and I was like, make that appointment as soon as possible. Don't wait until a month from now. And that's only because I have set the intention that it's time to move again. It's time to flow again. Yeah.
I was like that after my dad's transition. Um, I mentioned this, on Instagram. I also mentioned it in another interview, but I would say 2 weeks in, I felt like I was drowning in quicksand, and I said, I can't do this. I sat in it. I was drowning in it, and I just said no. I was very intentional about how I wanted to move forward and celebrate him and celebrate life. So I completely understand the intention, and to be able to sit intentionally and grieve whatever it is, and to move forward. Because that was actually something I was going to ask about your Qigong practice.
Mhm.
Because you're certified
Yeah.
practitioner, correct?
Yes.
When did you decide that that was going to be your source of movement and to get certified to help other people?
Yeah. Two questions there. So I decided that this was something for me when I was 7 years old. 7, probably 8.
Mm-hmm.
My dad loved kung fu movies, loved. And I remember one day sitting looking at this Shaolin kung fu movie with him,
Mm-hmm.
and as all the kids would, my sisters and brother. And there were these monks sitting actually standing with one knee over the neck, stooping like this on bamboo. And there was just silence in that moment. I guess they were meditating on the bamboo like this. The balance was crazy. I mean, all theatrics, of course. And they were just balancing on the bamboo like this. But all you can hear was the wind blowing and rustling through the leaves of the bamboo. And I remember being so mesmerized by that when they were fighting. They were fighting, but the things that they would do to calm their bodies and manifest the energy and conjure up energy was it did something to me. It resonated with me on a very deep cellular level. I felt a sense of calm as they prepared, because they always prepared with what I know now is moving meditation. It prepared them to do the thing, whether it was to fight, whether it was to have a conversation, whether it was to fast. That preparation always seemed so calming, so grounded, and so rooted. And so as a child, I was like, oh my God, I absolutely love this. What is this? And so it stayed with me. We looked at all the Kung Fu movies in the video store. Remember when they had Betamax and we looked at all of them. And as an adult, I always said I would explore this when I was able to. And so when I took the self-care sabbatical, the first thing that I did was started to look into Qigong and Tai Chi. And I found an incredible Qigong practitioner where I live here. And she started working with me for my very first Qigong flows. Absolutely loved it. It's called Shiba Shi 18 Movements 1, and then Shiba Shi 18 Movements 2. And I fell in love with it. I remember at the time doing yoga, trying out different modalities. And I was just like, I like the yoga, but no, I like Qigong. I love what it did for me back then. I love what it's doing for me now. And so I decided to become certified. The reason I love it so much and wanted to be certified is because it's such an easy practice. Anybody can do it, from children all the way to older 90-something-year-old adults, nonagenarians, centenarians. They can all do Qigong because Qigong is standing, it's sitting. You can lay in your bed and do Qigong. So there are so many ways, and you don't have to contort your body in too many difficult ways to be able to enjoy the benefits, the physical benefits of Qigong. So I wanted to have a practice that will take me through the ages, that would take me through my 50s, into my 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, God willing, and beyond. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's amazing. Yeah, I looked into that here in St. Louis, and I still haven't found the one that I feel that resonates and aligns with me, but that is something that I want to get into. Now, yoga, I liked it, but I like actually Pilates better. But I like the restorative aspect of Qigong.
Yeah, so restorative, so rooting and so grounded. And one of the reasons we do it is because we are grounding ourselves and we are rooting ourselves and we are amplifying the energies and optimizing the energy that we have in our bodies by just moving it.
We'll get into that a little bit later. Now, you are originally from a small village from Trinidad and Tobago. And
Hey.
you speak highly of your grandmother, and you
Yeah.
just spoke of her. What a blessing to still have her in your life. What
Yes.
are, I'll say, 3 memorable things that she told you and or taught you?
Yeah. Oh, my grandma, she is incredible. I grew up with my grandmother. So the first face I can remember ever seeing was my grandmother's face because she had me from the time I was 6 months old. So she's such a rock and a foundation in my life. So of course, one of the first things I can remember that she taught me that's really been the catalyst to where I am to this day is jump, life and God will catch you. That's the last thing. Something else was family first. And she always said that family doesn't have to be the people you're born who are your blood. Your family is whoever feels like family to you. And I always remember that. And so now I hear people use the term chosen family.
Yeah.
And so that's what I realized that she meant, chosen family. And so I have a lot of chosen family because I always remember her saying that, about family. And then a third thing, what's the third thing she told me that's always remember? Oh, come into the kitchen and help me make some coconut oil. You know
Wow.
what that did for me? I'll never forget that. And I went into the kitchen because, of course, I couldn't say no because it was a command. Come into the kitchen and help me make some coconut oil. And it's what she used to nourish our skin. And she would put the coconut oil into, or she would mix it with brown sugar, which back then we really didn't like because we thought only poor people had brown sugar, not realizing it was the better of the two sugars, but it's how we exfoliated our skin way before, it became a commercial trend. And so I went in there and she taught me how to extract coconut oil from the coconut on the stovetop. And it was one of the most fascinating things ever. And guess what? When I started Dixie Bits, it was the first thing that I did, make coconut oil. In fact, there is a YouTube video somewhere around that a friend of mine did with my grandmother and I making coconut oil in my kitchen. And there were so many beautiful responses to that. A lot about the connection that I had with her. But it was because she told me, come into the kitchen. I don't know. I think in her way it was advice. It was like, you've got to learn how to do something else other than your schoolwork. So come into the kitchen and learn how to do this, right? So I would say those three.
And that sounds like a ritual, and you are very intentional on
Yes.
rituals.
Yes.
When you were
Yeah.
first introduced to creating rituals, if you
Mm.
will, what is one that's very important for you?
Yeah. I think, again, rituals are so personal, they are sacred. And my whole existence is around rituals because I remember growing up, church was one of the most important rituals. Like every Saturday, we had to go to church. There was no ifs, ands about it. The Sabbath is the most important thing of the week. And of course, we were made to do it, but we enjoyed it, right? And it also instilled a lot of really very important values like showing up, like consistency, learning, paying attention, tuning in. And I think that would be the one of the first and one of the most important rituals for me. It was that showing up, being consistent, getting up every Saturday morning to go to church. And also, here is another big one. On that day, there was no work. It was a rest day. Today, my Sabbath is not on a Saturday, as I was taught growing up, but it has taught me how to take a day. And my Sabbath sometimes is on a Wednesday, a Sunday, a Monday, but there is a day of rest. No work being done. Just go chill somewhere, relax, read a book. You don't have to be tuned into labor and production. You simply have to just be. And I think that's what that ritual taught me, what it instilled in me, the need for, like you said again, intentional rest. And so that rest for me is intentional. Yeah.
Yeah. I was actually going to speak about rest a little bit later, but you've
Yeah.
already answered all of that. You've already answered everything. So let's segue into uh, life in the pause.
In life. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. If I can self-disclose a little bit,
Please, self
I was
disclose.
4 years into life in the pause without even knowing it. My mother told me that I would be her age, 55.
Mm,
I was actually 43, and I had a background of irregular menstrual cycles. I also had fibroids, endometriosis, ovarian cysts, had 5 surgeries, and just found out in 23. So that would have been 7 years after the pause, the beginning of the pause or post pause,
wow.
that it was due to hyperparathyroidism. So we have foreign parathyroid behind the thyroid, and they regulate, balance our calcium. And so I have had a history of kidney stones, and nobody ever said your blood has too much calcium in it until I was 50. The day
Wow.
before my 50th birthday, they said, listen, you've got a you have a kidney stone
Hmm.
that is obstructing your bladder, and we need to put a stent in. And I was like, well, I'm glad I didn't have any plans for my 50th because
Wow.
now I'm going into surgery the day
Wow.
before. So long story short, found out actually a couple of months after the surgery that it was hyperparathyroidism. So I had to get the 2 nodules that were enlarged out.
Got it.
And so I asked my GP, I was like, listen, was this the reason why I went into early menopause? And she said, yeah. I mean, I was having headaches
Mm.
every single day for a year due to the hyperparathyroidism. And it completely took me into a realm that I didn't know who I was. There are still days where I don't feel like doing anything. Oh, and let's not even talk about the over the years, the 50 pounds of weight gain that I look in the mirror and I'm like, who is this person?
Mm.
So how has that transition been for you?
Yeah. It's a journey for sure. And you are absolutely correct when you say there are times, moments where you don't even recognize yourself. And sometimes it's not your physical self you don't recognize. It's your emotional self you don't
Mhm.
recognize, or your spiritual self you do not recognize, because these sensations that begin to percolate in your body and show up in your body are so unfamiliar, right? Just yesterday, I was saying to my husband, I had never been to a hospital other than to have my 2 children. And then come 2020, boom, I'm in the hospital twice. Pandemic is raging, and I'm like, I don't feel well. Something's weird. Something's wrong. I'm going to the hospital. Ma'am, nothing's wrong. I'm going again. Ma'am, nothing's wrong. And between 2020 and 2024, I've been to the emergency room every year for something that I just don't recognize, because I'm like, I'm not the person, because I'm so in tune with my body. When I don't recognize something, I want to make sure and ensure that it is not something serious. I don't sit around on symptoms going, oh, it's this. I don't know what it is. I'm going to find out. If it's nothing, they'll tell me it's nothing, right? And so that's what menopause has done to me. I was in perimenopause at 38 years old and did not realize it. I started having heavy bleeding, irregular bleeding, blood clotting, didn't wasn't diagnosed with uterine fibroids until I was 40, and then realized, hmm, something's wrong. I was on the verge of having my uterus removed. I was going to do a partial hysterectomy because it was just too much blood loss, too much pain. And the day before, I went to my OBGYN to pick up some medication in preparation for the surgery. And she said to me, verbatim, I said to her, I'm a bit nervous. And she said to me, verbatim, I don't know why women are so attached to their uterus, especially if they're not having any more children. Oh, I know. I know. And that blew my mind. I stood there and I was like, I cannot believe this woman just said this to me. You've been my GYN for what, 2, 3 years, and this comes out of your mouth. And so I said, okay, thank you. Took my stuff and I left. I came down and there was tears in my eyes. And my husband said, what's wrong? I told him, and I said, I'm not doing the surgery. And that kind of led me down the path of the holistic lifestyle and about minimizing the xenoestrogens in my body and examining a lot of the products that I was using that might have been contributing to estrogen dominance. I had tons of acne on my skin because of the overproduction of estrogen, only to learn later on all of that was perimenopause. One
Mm.
doctor said to me, one of the first signs that you are in perimenopause is uterine fibroids, because your body, the estrogen levels are fluctuating so much. Like it goes high and then it goes down. So it's all over the place. And guess what fibroids feed on? Estrogen. And so that's when they start becoming problematic for women, especially Black women. And again, all of these things were happening, but I did not make the connection until later on. And so that was the early part of perimenopause for me. Once I got the fibroids under control, Later on, I went a couple years, 2 years later, and they said to me, "Oh, your uterine fibroids are decreasing in size. What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm really paying attention to my diet. I am optimizing my restorative practices. I am taking care of myself, body, mind, and spirit." And because this is what I felt the need to do after my experience with my OBGYN, whom, of course, was no longer my OBGYN after that. And so I went into full menopause in 2022 in October, on October 23rd, November 23rd of 2022 was when I had my last period, and then went into full menopause in 2023. I think I said that right, in 2023. 24, 20. This is going to be the third year. So I was happy. I was a happy camper once the period was gone. I was like, goodbye, don't come back. I've had enough. And then, of course, it also meant that there was nothing for the fibroids to feed off of. So after that, had absolutely no issues with them whatsoever. They've shrunk, they're so small. I don't know the exact size, but they're really small now. But it was a very trying time, partly knowing what was happening and part not knowing what was happening. By the time I did get to realize that I was in perimenopause, I had the tools to support myself, to support my body, support my mind, and support my spirit, which made it a lot easier, right? I turned to friends. I turned to older friends. I love older women. I loved being in the company of older women. And so some of them gave me advice, the ones who were willing to talk. Even my grandmother gave me a little bit of advice. I kind of pulled some things out of her, but knowing makes all the difference in terms of how you navigate this process. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're talking about it more. I mean, Halle Berry has changed her whole branding for respin to menopause. I mean, she's gone to Congress and all these other things, and other actresses are talking about it. But when I was experiencing it, I had no idea. I just thought my cycle was irregular. I remember my first hot flash. I remember because I thought I was having a panic attack. It was the day after I saw um what's the movie? Black Panther.
Black Panther.
And I woke up. I mean, I had such a spiritual experience after that movie. I'm like taking notes and feeling all type of things. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and I literally was like, and I'm not an anxious person per se. I mean, I can make myself anxious because of thoughts and the mind and all that. But I woke up and I was physically ill.
Mm.
And I was like, what is going on here? And I was just like, okay, maybe I had a nightmare, but I knew I didn't have a nightmare or a bad dream. And then it always happened in the morning after I got out of the shower and I was fully dressed and I'm doing my hair and I would have a hot flash. And I had no idea, but I was just like, why am I so hot? I am burning up. And I was like, no, it couldn't be. And it wasn't like I was in denial. It was just that I went by what my mother said I'd be 55. Little did I know that perimenopause can last 10 years before you finish everything.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I was getting physically ill in my solar plexus.
Wow.
And again, it wasn't until 4 years later, I was living in Hawaii and there was an older sister that I met. And I was just like, this is what's going on. And this is what's going on. And she's like, oh, sis, you are in menopause. I was like, what?
Let me tell you.
Yes. So I went down the rabbit hole, Dixie. I researched so much. And then I realized that, then I looked up some Chinese medicine and the information on that. And it was saying that the liver was overheated. So by that time I had left Hawaii and moved back to Atlanta. And there were times where I would get a cool wash rag, put it over my liver, and within 30 minutes to an hour, it would be completely dry. That's how
Wow.
overheated I was. I mean,
Mm.
it took me down the trajectory of eating foods I hadn't eaten in years. I became addicted to sugar. I was never into sugar like that.
Wow.
And that's where a lot of the weight, and then, the stress, my mother had transitioned, I had lost a job and all these other things. So yeah,
There was
it
a
was a
lot
lot.
going on and having to deal
Hmm.
with that. Yeah. So do you feel
Yeah.
like the food was about comfort?
You know, Probably. And I
Yeah.
was never a foodie like that.
Right. Right.
And
Okay.
it just got to the point. I mean, I was even asking girlfriends, like, are you picking up weight? And without even changing, at that point, I hadn't even changed my diet. And I
Mm.
was plant based, like strict.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I found myself, I was eating Cheez Its and Doritos.
Oh,
I was eating a full bag of cookies. And I was like, what is
wow.
happening to me?
Yeah. Appetite
What is
increase.
going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
And so,
one of the things I learned was that I had to change because I'm this healthy eater as well. I splurge. I do the 80-20 healthy and then
mhm,
splurge on 20. But what I realized was that I had to change that eating that kind of healthy was not working for me anymore. And I
mhm,
had to change the way that I was eating. And it was a whole switch that had to happen. And I was like, but I'm not doing anything differently. Well, guess what? I wasn't, but my body required something different because
yep,
it was different. And I didn't recognize that again, of course, until after. And all of that happens when you pay attention to the sensations of your body and you ask the questions like, why, why? And that sends you, again, like you say, sometimes down the rabbit hole. And you find answers in the rabbit hole sometimes.
mhm.
Yeah,
And there's such a disproportionate number of Black women who don't have the resources or the knowledge of what's going on.
exactly.
And that
Exactly.
doesn't have to be, those that live in the inner city. I mean, I didn't know.
There you go.
My mother didn't talk about that. The only thing that I
Mhm.
know was she would have the window cracked in her room in the winter and the fan on. And I'm like, "Ma, it's cold in here." She's like, "Kelly, it's not." And there are days, Dixie, where
Yeah.
I am like, I have got to open up this window. I don't have like any ceiling fans. And there are times where I talk to her and I'm like, Ma, I get it now. Like, I get it. Like, just like me, she'd get dressed, she'd get out the bathroom, put her clothes on, she's fixing her hair and her makeup, and then she just starts sweating.
Yeah.
And I have the
Yeah.
same thing, and she'd be like, "It's hot." So I'm doing the same thing. It's so hot in here, and I gotta open up the
You get
windows.
it.
Yeah, it's
So many
like,
women say that they get it now. I was telling my daughter the other day because she kind of scoffs, my youngest, when I tell her I'm not feeling well and it has to do with menopause. I said, one day you will get it. You have to understand what's happening with the body. It changes. You're not going to stay this way. Hopefully I'm alive at that time and we'll talk about it more in terms of how you're feeling now. Yeah.
so tell us about your creation of life in the pause. Pretty much for us, by us.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Tell us about
Okay.
that.
So, after I closed Inside Out a Beauty Market, I said to myself, I don't want to do anything by myself anymore.
Mm,
I built a really beautiful community with Inside Out a Beauty Market with a lot of women who stayed in my orbit, continued to be a part of my world. They subscribe to my newsletter. I'm in touch with them. Some of them are clients that I work with, coaching. And I have a community called the Pause Spot. They're a part of that. I wanted to exist within community where I had support. And so when Life in the Pause happened, it was by no coincidence. My friend, my business partner, Monique Cupid, and I, we were meeting for a project during the pandemic. And we met every Wednesday. It had nothing to do with menopause. And we were planning for this project, but every Wednesday without fail for 2 years. You probably missed one or two Wednesdays for 2 years. We would talk about menopause about an hour before we dove into work on the project.
mhm.
And then around the 2 year mark, I said, listen, girl, you do realize we talk about menopause every week. The fact that there weren't enough resources and what each of us was experiencing on our journey, our aches, our pains, our issues, the issues in the landscape, the issues around resources, the issues around Black women, and all we talked about all of it. And then I said, we should be doing something about this, as it pertains to health and wellness. And it so happened, jump, life and God will catch you. It so happened that she had a website, a domain name that she purchased called Life in the Pause.
Mm.
She wasn't doing anything with it. I'm like, well, now we are. And it just so happened like that. And Life in the Pause was born. And we started to pour our hearts into what it would mean for two Black women who didn't feel catered to, who didn't feel spoken to, whose needs didn't feel like they were being addressed, what it would mean to have a company that centered our experiences. What would it look like to have experts come on board and talk about menopause? And not just that, but to empower women, empower ourselves with knowledge so that we could transform the menopausal process and that journey from something that is seeped in shame and is so tabooed to something that is celebratory and sacred. And so that is what we set out to do with Life in the Pause, really give women tools that they can use to support themselves during this transition so that they can live the lives that they want, live the vibrant, full lives that they deserve as well. And we are in our third year. Coming up on October 4th will be our third annual Life in the Pause Festival in New York City. Yeah.
That's exciting. That's actually my mother's birthday.
Ah,
I may have to, I wanted to go back to New York in this summer, but I may have to do that. I'm gonna look into that,
look
Dixie.
into it. Look into it. It's October the 3rd. So it's during World Menopause Month.
Yeah, as soon as we get off here, I'm going to look into that.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's a Japanese word for menopause, and what is it? Konenki, something like that. And
Yeah.
it's, quote, a transition into a new phase of life. And then the breakdown of the word is renewal and regeneration,
Mm.
years, season, or energy. And I mean, it took me a while, probably within the last year. And I think it's probably a constant thing, but to really look at it as a rites of passage. You know what I mean? And like you said, it's a sacred experience, because I know for me, going into puberty and having my menstrual cycle, completely devastating. I mean, I
Yeah.
was out in public, I had on white shorts. It was so me going into menstruation and then coming out into menopause, both devastating.
Mm.
And I never had
Mm.
the conversation about menstrual cycle. I mean, there's just things that my mother and that age group just didn't talk about,
Yeah.
but I've had to mourn and grieve that old person, because I didn't feel attractive anymore. I started to think, am I losing my mojo?
Mm.
Like, what is going on? But it was like, I just didn't feel attractive.
Yeah.
So, and then again, the weight gain, it really was a mental trip for me.
Yeah.
It's like, you couldn't tell me 10 years ago that I would be whatever. I'd be like, girl, please.
Yeah.
And now, I
Mm.
mean, I've accepted it. It is what it is. That's
Right.
where we
Right.
are.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but moving into having that thought process of it being a sacred a sacred experience
Yeah.
and regeneration and renewal, you know,
Absolutely. I
because
love
it can be
that.
so daunting. It was for
It
me.
can. It really can. You hit the nail on the head. It can be so daunting. And, there are a few people who don't have these adverse symptoms like we've experienced and like so many women experience, but it's a spectrum,
Yeah.
none to mild to moderate to severe, but it can be daunting nonetheless. And with that, for many of us, comes growing older. So it's like compounded. And it is all about mindset. It really, you have to get to this place where you love yourself so much, so unconditionally, that no matter what you see in that mirror, you're like, Okay, if I need to lose weight, it's because I need to lose weight for health and well-being reasons, not because of some beauty standards that's projected onto me, not because I want to stay looking like I'm 19, 20, or 30, but because it's for health reasons. Like whatever you arrive at, you have to know that what you see reflected back at you is to be loved. And one of the things that helped me tremendously back in 2016, I went out and I purchased myself a magnifying mirror. And I remember the first time I looked in that magnifying mirror, I was like, oh, good Lord. Every nook and cranny on my skin was like, woo, here you
Yeah.
are. And I remember going back to it. I kept going back to that mirror every single day. I do it to this day. Every day I look in that mirror. Now I have to, because when I take my glasses off and I have to put on my makeup, I'm able to do it as neatly as I do because
Mhm.
of that magnifying mirror. But initially it was because I just bought it and it just did this thing to me that I needed to get in touch with. And so every day I would look in the mirror. It's how I brush my teeth. I'm looking in that mirror. So everything is magnified. I see everything. The more I looked in the mirror, the more I loved what I saw, including that's how I started going gray as well.
Mhm.
The more things somehow, I guess it's creating new neural pathways and training your brain to love what it sees and being accustomed to it. And the more I did it, the more I loved doing it. That led to not just face mirror works, it also led to whole body mirror works. So now, as of 2020, I started lotioning my entire body. So, like, oil my scalp and then my entire body, I moisturize from scalp to my soul. It is a ritual every single day. My physical body has changed. I've put on weight around my midsection. My butt has gotten bigger. My hips have gotten wider. My breasts fuller and they are sagging more. But guess what? I look in the mirror and I see my image every single day, and I don't have a darn problem with it.
I know that's right.
Only because I look in the mirror.
Yes, I love that. I've gotten to that point. I mean, there
Yeah,
are days where I'm just like, oh, you know, and there's also things that I'm not supposed to be eating. Like I should not be eating anything that's gluten. I know that.
right.
Because that will just expand me and it will inflame me.
Yeah.
Probably one of the reasons why I'm draining and having allergy symptoms right now because I had a piece of bread yesterday. But you mentioned getting older, which takes me into, this whole anti-aging thing.
Mm,
I never heard anybody in my family, my mother, my aunts, great aunts, grandmother, nobody ever talked about aging or getting older. It's just what it was, right? As a Black woman, it just is what it
yeah,
is.
yeah,
Um, not to go into too deep with race. However, it is a European idea and ideal. And I've seen you use the term well aging.
yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about
Yeah.
that. What is that?
Yeah, I love that. I love that you asked that question. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
I think we have to prioritize this one thing. And I cannot take credit for this. I heard an Instagram personality. I don't know if it was on YouTube. No, it wasn't on YouTube. It was either TikTok or Instagram. One lady, she said, the goal is to grow old. We all want that. What is the alternative, right? The alternative is that you die. I have a friend who died at 66 years old last 2 weeks ago. My dear friend, my heart is still broken. I cannot even believe I'm speaking about her in the past tense. She didn't get to grow older. Her mother, who was at the funeral, was 93 years old. Things happen, life is not guaranteed. We never know what can happen. You can be the healthiest you can be, get hit by a truck or a car. There might be some genetic issue that you may have you didn't even know you had, right? So we just don't know. When we think of aging, we have to think about, or we get to, if we want to, think about moving through these years, these chronological years, these moments as well as possible, right? Instead of anti-aging, it's like saying, I don't want to age. I'm against the process of aging. Aging or growing older is a blessing. It is a gift. With that comes so much wisdom if we are open to receiving the wisdom and learning the lessons. Not only that, but we have the experience of moments, memories made with our loved ones, made with our family, our blood family, our chosen family, made from the things that we do and all of the things that lead up to where we are. And so if we look at that as the blessing and the gift that it is, and if we look at it as I want to do it feeling as content in my body, as content in my spirit, and as content in my mind as possible, then I think it removes this idea of not wanting to embody physically what that means. If you are an anti-ager, then you are not going to welcome wrinkles. You're not going to welcome a little weight gain or a lot of weight gain. You're not going to welcome the chronological numbers as they add up. You're not going to welcome experiences. You're not going to welcome life. And this is life. Growing older is a part of life. And I want to do it with love, with goodness, with grace, with vitality, with vibrance, right? And that means a lot. It means eating as well as you can so that you can optimize your health and your well being. It means having the types of relationships that fulfill you. It means doing the things that you love to do, that makes you happy, that brings you fulfillment and contentment. It is such a deep and wide topic to talk about, when we talk about aging. But looking at it with a proactive mindset, I think, is the key. There is no anti-aging for me. I am pro-aging. I am all about well-aging. I want to age, and I want to do that with the best possible perspective. Now, how someone chooses to age is entirely up to them. How they choose to grow older is entirely up to them. That's your business. My business when it comes to aging is to do it as well as I can, to love what I see when I look in the mirror. So I'm not up at night wishing that I look like something that I can't look like or can look like, but can't afford to look like. You know what I mean? No, I want to be like, girl, you're good. You're fine. Let's go. My hair is thinning out. And I'm like, it is what it is, right? And so I find ways to embrace this journey and love this phase of my life as much as I can. It alleviates so much stress. I'm so less stressed when I lean into aging well and what that means for me, because it means different things for different people. I know I feel well when I'm able to embrace myself. And this is ongoing work. I'm gonna have to do this next year because I'm not gonna look the same. My face looks different. My whole body looks different. But I've accepted it. And once I do, I know I will be fine. And that's what well aging is to me. It's not just about the physical. It's about optimizing the health of the physical, the spiritual, if you're a spiritual person, and the emotional or mind. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that right there encompasses intentionality.
Yeah.
It's an intentional
Yes.
process and
Yeah.
experience.
Back to
You know,
intention. Yes.
anything that's anti, like you said, it because okay, I won't say that. But anyway, you mentioned you mentioned your daughter earlier, your youngest daughter leaving home and going away to college, and I've also seen this on your Instagram, which I love.
Yes.
You said you're not an empty nester. You are an envision nester. Please explain that. Now, did you coin that?
I sure did. I'm always pointing something and this is the thing. This is the beauty of not being an anti-age or an anti anything, right? I get to explore what it means for me. And, when the downloads come and when you are attuned to the sensations of your body, your mind, your spirit, things come. You have these epiphanies and you're like, ah.
Absolutely.
And so I remember one day going, oh my God, I missed my daughter. I was crying, on and off a lot, just from missing her. And I was like, what am I going to do with this empty nester syndrome thing? And it was like something just downloaded into me, girl, you better stop with this empty nesting and start trying to figure out how you're going to envision this nest. And I was like, that's it. That's it. I gotta it's time to make the switch from empty nester to envision nester. And I started envisioning what I want my life to look like because it was different. Like it or not, she was gone. She's going to come back home. She comes for visits, but she's gone. It's just my husband and myself. What do I want my life to look like? What do I want to do? Where do I want to live? Do I still want to live here? Do I want to go to another country and live, another state? Do I want to travel more? What kind of jobs am I willing to take on now? Do I want to go back into the corporate world? I started having all the things just percolate in my mind. And it brought so much joy just allowing myself to do that it put that notion of empty nesting off to the side where it belonged. And I was able to lean into this envision nesting idea to start building on the what next. I am in that phase. Yeah.
Those downloads, I tell you, they are a gift. I use the word gift a lot too. Like, this is how I got the conversation piece. I had so many names and I was in meditation. And there are times where I will come out of meditation and grab my phone and write in my notes. And that's exactly what it was. So I completely
Love it.
understand about the downloads and that epiphany where it's, this is it. Yeah.
This is it. You got it.
So, Dixie, how do you maintain your mental wellness?
Yeah. I would say Qigong and therapy, prayer. Qigong in no particular order. Qigong, therapy, and prayer. I'm grateful as much as sometimes I find myself shifting to being ungrateful because there are some things I'm like, oh, why? Why? I was like, girl, stop. Stop, 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 stop. Why are you feeling like that? Is because you feel like you have to have this thing or you feel you need to be doing this thing and you really don't. At least not now. And if that thing is for you, because you set intentions, it'll come to you. And if not, it's not going to come to you. So chill, relax, and I move on. Right. So I pray for, and I'm grateful to God, to the universe, and I had a conversation with my grandmother. We were talking, she doesn't understand the concept of the universe. And I said to her, I said, Granny, the only reason I say the universe is because God made the universe. And if I ask for things, I'm not going to see God. The things that he gives me is going to be in the universe. I have to look in the universe for it. And so when I say I thank God in the universe, I'm thanking God for the universe and the things that he puts there for me to see so that I can get what I need, right? If I'm not paying attention, then I might miss some of the signs that are being presented to me. So I pray and I thank God for the, like you said, the gifts that he's given me, that's moved me in this direction. That's so important. Qigong is grounding, it's rooting, it is anchoring, it's restorative. And so when I bring my Qigong practice, when I do my Qigong practice in the mornings, or sometimes I do it at night too, I feel a sense of peace and ease. I feel a sense of calm and chaos. My body switches over to rest, repair, and digest because it's all about incorporating and synchronizing my breath with the movements that I'm carrying out. And it just brings me into harmony. It unifies all of me. I come home to my body. I call in all the scattered pieces that are out there in the world, wherever they are. It's a time when I get to call all of me back home into my body where I feel safe. And then, so I said Qigong, prayer, and what was the other one? Brain fog there for a moment.
And I'm so into what you're saying. Um,
Qigong, prayer, and I forgot what was the other one that I said.
I did
Yeah,
too.
yeah. But nonetheless, like that's what these practices do for me. They anchor me. I need it. I also take petite pauses during the day. Another term I coined, petite pauses. I take two,
Mhm.
three of them a day sometimes. And the pause is just to do something that calms me. So sometimes it might be a few diaphragmatic breaths. Sometimes it may be just looking at the clouds in the sky and I'm like, oh, there goes a dog or there goes a rabbit. Sometimes it might be watching people go by. I love people watching. Sometimes it's just sitting out in the sun, just doing nothing, things that does not require me to utilize much energy or to entertain stress. Because sometimes a lot of what I do, and you know how that is, incorporates stress. And we have to diffuse that. So I diffuse that sometimes during the day with like little petite pauses. Yeah, we're just pausing. Yeah,
Yeah.
distill.
So to wind down, who is Dixie Lincoln-Nichols?
I am an Aquarian. You know, I would not have said this. I would not have said this 10 years ago because I wasn't really into astrology. It's something new for me that I'm utilizing to understand who I am and how I move through the world. I am an Aquarian. I am a hell of an optimist. I am an abundant thinker. I'm a mother. I am a wife. I am a friend. I am a supporter. I am a caregiver. I'm a teacher and I'm a student. Ooh, so many things. Yeah.
Well, I'll say you are a joy. There have been plenty of times where I wanted to pick up my tissue and wipe a tear because the energy is just you're just a joy and
Oh,
a wealth of wisdom. And I just want to thank you for accepting this invitation. Again, thank you for your wealth of knowledge for helping me create this. Um, it has been a joy and a pleasure, and I'm so grateful for you. Thank you.
oh. Thank you. Thank you. You know, thank you for being open to saying hello on Instagram.
Mhm.
And I'm glad I stay open as well, that we connected and that we explored our connection. I think there is just that something that you possess that I'm attracted to energy. Like you said, I am attracted to energy. I do energy works. And so I know. And it was, okay, that's your people right there. And I'm so happy that I leaned into the energy that was moving toward me and I moved toward it and here we are. So thank you
Yeah,
so much for allowing me to help you and support you and thank you for having the conversational piece. This was a peaceful, beautiful conversation. Thank you so much.
thank you. And to our Conversation Peace family, thank you for being here. And remember to love always.